Ciaccona has been out for a couple of days now, and since I've had the chance to properly test her out more extensively, I thought I'd deliver my more fleshed out thoughts on the character, evaluate whether my pre-release pros and cons were accurate or not, and give my opinion on where I currently think she stands in the meta. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. For starters, I seriously glazed how good Ciaccona would be as a Phoebe teammate, and oh boy did this end up holding up. Like I said, this lovely carefree bard is officially Phoebe's new best in slot, second slot teammate. Her off-field Spectro Frazzle application makes DPS Phoebe feel so much more smooth to play. Any previous issues that I may have had with Phoebe's multi-wave have been completely resolved now, because Ciaccona simply makes the Acolyte feel that comfortable to play a multi-wave. Genuinely, it is such an insane improvement in terms of comfort over Spectro Rover. Long gone are the days where you have to constantly swap back into Spectro Rover in order to apply Spectro Frazzle to brand new enemy waves. And multi-wave situations aside, Ciaccona ends up being Phoebe's best assault teammate in any given scenario. I found her to be an absolute delight to use against boss encounters as well. 100% an upgrade when it comes to the gameplay smoothness of Absolution Phoebe. And oh boy, did she end up being a good upgrade for Phoebe when it came to Whimpering Wastes. Don't get me wrong, I definitely knew that she would help her out there. After all, good Spectral Frazzle application in multi-wave was the main thing holding back Phoebe there. But goodness me, this has turned Phoebe into a genuinely good Whimpering Wastes character, and with that, a main DPS that is able to effectively tackle every single endgame mode in Wuthering Waves. The Acolyte is already filled with boatloads of value, but if you pair her with this bard, then that value somehow increases again. Seriously, Phoebe mains cannot stop winning. So to say that Ciaccona ended up being a great Phoebe teammate would be quite the understatement. I also mentioned how it would be quite nice that Ciaccona will be able to free up Spectro Rover, so that you'd be able to save Rover for other teams, and this ended up holding true. However, that doesn't mean that you don't have to use Spectro Rover with Phoebe anymore. You can still opt to do so if it's something that you're interested in. He can still act as a very good third slot teammate for Absolution Phoebe, because of his S6. The Spectral res reduction is still very nice, and it's a good way to free up Shorekeeper. However, the option to completely remove Rover from these teams remains intact. Which is actually kind of ironic when you consider that Aero Rover actually now has a good use case with Ciaccona. He was indeed usable before with Gion, but the synergy just wasn't that good before Ciaccona came out. But now with her around, Aero Rover is able to be far more effective with Gion. The pair synergize with them excellently, and it manages to act as an excellent side grade to more Teffy Shorekeeper. So her freeing up Spectro Rover has also opened the avenue for Aero Rover to be more useful. But if you generally just had your Spectro Rover glued to your Phoebe and really wanted to free him, well then there you go. Now you can either use Havoc Rover again, or even consider using Aero Rover for a Gion team. Considering how Kuro Games is most likely going to continue adding new Rover elements over time, and he's only going to become more contested by other teams, this is a very nice quality to have. I also highlighted before how she was going to end up being a great investment into Aero Erosion. Now here's the thing, I can't really say much about this, because we don't have any dedicated main DPS that focuses on Aero Erosion yet. The main thing pointing towards this is that on outro, she's able to amplify the damage of Aero Erosion by 100%. That is no small buff at all. So on that basis, yes, she is an excellent investment into Aero Erosion. But because we don't really have any main DPS that cares about the negative status at the minute, this is really only a positive quality that's going to matter going into the future. So if you're somebody that's particularly interested in Aero Erosion and wants to see where it goes from here, well then there you go. Ciaccona is most definitely going to end up as the best install support for any main DPS that really heavily relies on this negative status, but we just don't have anybody like that yet. In order to truly see the effectiveness of her Aero Erosion buffing, we'll have to wait until we actually get some Aero Erosion based characters. But I see no reason to deny that she is indeed a good investment into this archetype, considering that her outro skill amplifies the negative status so much. I also mentioned that she wouldn't be Signature-Reliant, because you'd easily be able to use Static Mist, a gun that offers buffing capabilities. Being able to offer some additional attack to your main DPS is a very nice quality, and while it may not be the best for her personal damage, as you'd rather use her signature weapon or Last Dance, it isn't bad for it either, seeing as it does provide her a solid amount of crit rate and has a decent amount of attack. Consider that Static Mist is a permanently available standard weapon, making her one of the most accessible characters to build when it comes to her weapon options. And when you consider that most Wuthering Waves units do really want their signature weapons, I'd say that this is quite the refreshing little break. Especially whenever you consider that our main signature weapon, while it is good, the buffing capabilities that it offers only really applies to Aero teams, because it's able to reduce enemy Aero res. Obviously great for Gion teams, and obviously great for any future teams that may feature Aero Erosion, but for Spectro Frazzle teams, another archetype in which Ciaccona is very good, you'd rather use Static Mist for the attack buffing. So she indeed does not need her signature by any stretch of the imagination, and I think that's pretty neat. Of course, that's not to completely undersell her signature, as it's still a very good weapon for her, and it does aid her own personal damage quite nicely considering how many stats it gives her. And if you're really looking to invest into the Aero element, then it's certainly a good pickup. But like I said, you don't need it. using Static Mist is going to be more than sufficient. In terms of negatives, I noted that Ciaccona wouldn't really be helping Zani all that much. And yeah, I would say this pretty much ended up being true. She is indeed a solid teammate for her, and you can use her as her second best Spectro Frazzle applicant. However, you still have to use Spectro Rover in the team. It will indeed work decently with the Goat Banker lady, but it's nothing revolutionary. The thing is, it's really hard to top the amazing buffs that Confession Phoebe provides to Zani. All that Spectro Frazzle amplification is really hard to top. And if you do have the Acolyte to support your Zani, then you have no real reason to randomly slot Ciaccona into the team, because you're getting more than enough Spectro Frazzle application out of the Acolyte. So in such a case, you would rather use Shorekeeper as your third slot teammate in order to access her crit buffs. However, that's not to say that there's no synergy. If you missed out on Phoebe recently, and Ciaccona is your next best bet, then yes, she will indeed work fine. It is going to be better than having no alternative option, but just keep in mind that Confession Phoebe is a better support for Zani by kilometers. It is not even close. So I wouldn't go out of your way to pull for the Bard for the exhausted 9-to-5er if you're a really big Zani fan. Because while they work together, you would much rather just use Phoebe. However, ultimately, I would say that that's fine. It's not like Ciaccona really had to help Zani. She already has her best in slot team completely finished. I'd say she still made a very significant contribution to the Spectral Frazzle niche by being able to make Phoebe so good in Whimpering Wastes. And also just by providing us the best Absolution Phoebe teams that we have to date. Another aspect that I mentioned about Ciaccona that could possibly be a negative is that she'd be a little bit niche. A character that's only really designed for the Aero, Erosion, and Spectro Frazzle archetypes. To be completely honest, while this is true, I don't necessarily see this as a flaw. Sure, she's niche, but she definitely fulfills the niche that she was built for very, very well. As of now, the main places that you're going to be using her are Spectro Frazzle teams or Geon teams. And she's highly effective in both of those scenarios. I mean, shoot, you're even able to alter her build accordingly. 5-piece Moonlit Clowns if you're playing her in any team that isn't Aero-based, and Gusts of Welkin for any Aero-based teams. She's a fantastic support in all of the areas that you might want to use her. And this is her value as it currently stands. Just wait until the future. She's already this good, but Kuro is only now starting to wrap up the Spectro Frazzle archetype. Judging by Ciaccona's outro skill, it's very likely that Aero Erosion is the next on the chopping block. And if that's the case, imagine how much better she's going to be whenever Aero Erosion becomes even more relevant. She's already proven to have excellent potential in Aero-based teams. Of course, I'm never going to encourage pulling for a character based on future potential. You always want to wait until their value has confirmably been increased. Because otherwise you could be investing into a character hoping for a future that may never come. And usually, whenever a character does start to become really relevant for a certain character, Kuro is just going to rerun that unit alongside the new character that's releasing. So as always, no immediate FOMO to get her. So while yes, she is niche, she fulfills her niche more than well enough to justify being niche. And now for the moment that you've all been waiting for. Where do I currently think that Ciaccona stands in the meta? I'll say this, she is 100% a great pull for any Absolution Phoebe main. If you main Phoebe or you're interested in maining Phoebe, I really do advise that you pick up Ciaccona. While she is indeed still an amazing unit for a free-to-play friendly team of Spectro, Rover, and Sanhua or Mortefi, genuinely the gameplay experience of using Phoebe with Ciaccona is just a night and day difference. It feels so much more comfortable, as I personally never really enjoyed using Spectro Rover, so this genuinely feels like such a nice upgrade. And I would also say it's honestly worth it on the basis of making Phoebe good in Whimpering Wastes as well. That way, you have a main DPS that kills every bird with one stone, holograms, TOA, and Whimpering Wastes. So Phoebe enjoyers, definitely pick her up. If you're somebody that likes the Aero Erosion negative status or is just interested in his future, then yes, she is a good pickup, but keep in mind, investing into a character before we get any real teammates for them can be a bit of a risky move. So if you're somebody that doesn't have Phoebe or Geon, I'd say that it's a bit of a risky play and you're not really going to have anywhere to use her for a little bit. But I am 99% sure that she's probably going to be good in future Aero Erosion comps. If you're a fellow Geon enjoyer such as myself, I wouldn't really say that you need her, but she's certainly a nice side grade if you're interested in her. And if you like Aero as an element in general, then I'd say she's a pretty solid pickup. If you're a Zani main, once again, I wouldn't really go out of your way to pick up Ciaccona for her specifically, but if you have confidence in the Bard's future in the Aero Erosion archetype, or just want to pick her up because she does some silly singing and dancing, then sure, she will indeed work with Zani, but just keep in mind that Confession Phoebe is infinitely better for her. All in all, a very good character. She has boatloads of value for the units that she works with, while still remaining perfectly skippable. I do like Ciaccona, but I will say it did take me a hot minute to get used to her gameplay. It does feel like her animations are very busy, but once you get used to it, it's pretty straightforward. All in all, a pretty cool character. But how about yourself? Are you impressed with Ciaccona's performance? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week, every week on Saturday, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video is able to tell you my opinions on Ciaccona now that we've had her out for a couple of days now. This has been Juice, signing out. And if you think about it, Phoebe's Best Assault team is quite musical. Shorekeeper plays the piano, Ciaccona can sing, and Phoebe can sing too.